Hmm, indubitably. Yes. Oh, salutations. I am Frederick Reeder, your professor. I just happen to be reading a little bit of a little bit of Shakespeare here as I continue my education in the readings of the Bard, as it were. Yeah, I haven't picked this book up in like 15 years. I don't know. He's pretty good. I like Shakespeare, but not my favorite. It's good to see you. I don't know why. I don't know why I'm wearing this. I'm really not even like fully in a suit or anything. I've got my. It's hard to see it. Oh, there we go. I got my Tesla concert T-shirt on, right there. Yep, there we are. Good stuff. Good stuff. Hey, it's good to see you. Welcome to another edition of Video Fred. I don't think I quite have the viewership of Logan Paul. Let's say that's the only YouTuber I really know, and I only know that about because of some unsavory news about him. But anyway, thanks for joining in as I talk about the Beat project. You need a few documents with you. You need Quiz 2, and then the Beat assignment document, and the Beat video supplemental. Those are all on your Canvas assignment. Again, I'm going to talk about why I'm doing this on a video lecture. This is your homework, basically, instead of you having to actually do, writing or other assignments. This is flipping the classroom, so your homework is actually the lecture instead of the lecture being what we do in class. This is especially helpful for something like this, where I'm explaining a massive project like the Beat project. Because if you miss class because you're sick or you wake up and you're like, I really can't handle that dude today, totally understand. You've got this video that you can reference so you won't miss everything. So I don't have to, if you miss class, I don't have to sit down with you and try to explain everything to you. It's a pain for you, it's a pain for me. And so this is much better. Of course, when you're not paying attention, this is a great opportunity for you to pause me until you know, down a couple shots and feel like you're ready to get back into the game. Shots of water, staying hydrated with water. And then, of course, if you need clarification, if you think you understood it, but then, a few days pass by and you're not really clear, certainly you can ask me, but you can also go back to this if you want to use it as a reference. All right, well, let's go. I'd like to first go to our quiz number 2. That's from chapter 14. And just make sure you understand what is going on in terms of covering a beat. So this is quiz 2. I'm going to go through the answers. Number 1, if you want to succeed as a reporter, you must be prepared, alert, persistent, wary, and there. That's letter B. In other words, you got to get out and leave your dorm or your apartment and actually go to places to watch people do what they do and to talk people. That's how you write great stories. That's a life lesson too, of course, of getting out and hanging out with folks. Number 2, your first step in preparing to cover a beat is certainly not to become biased. That's letter A, and certainly not to wait for sources to come to you. The first thing you really need to do is letter B, which is to try to learn as much as possible about the issues and personalities. That gives you some foundational knowledge, some context, which then leads to number 3, when you can then go start talking to these sources. You'll have some information and understanding, and those sources then will lead you into an even better, uh, even more knowledge and better understanding of your topic. So 3 is letter C. Number 4, one of the most common faults of beginning reporters when they interview sources is C, they give up too easily. I talked about this a little bit in our very first class, how you become shy or embarrassed that you're spending time writing down responses, or maybe you can't think of questions, and so you just kind of end the interview early. And that's totally understandable. But the goal is to really try to fight through that, come prepared for interviews, and realize that their answers to those questions are going to probably lead to even better questions that you didn't even think about. So 4 is letter C. Number 5, the most important technique for you to build and maintain good relationships with sources is the answer to a lot of these quiz questions is to be accurate. Accuracy means that they're going to trust you. They're going to then agree more quickly to answer questions that you might have. So letter C is the answer for 5. 6, beat reporters are always expected to file a full story first, and that's not true. You might do a whole bunch if you were an actual beat reporter. You might upload just a quick message to Twitter to let your followers know, hey, I'm covering a story that just happened in the town that I usually cover. So you won't wait to update social media and do other and blog and things before you write a full complete story. Number 7, all the following are guidelines for writing for your audience instead of your sources, except letter D, and that's right with the understanding that advertising is the main source of support. It might be, but that's not really why you are um, writing for your audience. So you are A, trying to make personal contact with the people you're covering. That's critical. B, you are trying to make things clear for your audience, to make sure everybody understands. And then you certainly are doing letter C. You are asking questions that the audience would ask. That's really understanding your audience well. And then finally, number 8, good sports reporters aren't considered good reporters. That's false. There are a lot of fantastic sports reporters out there. So that should, hopefully you did well on that, and that gives you a good understanding of some of the qualities of beat reporting. Next thing we're going to do is go to the beat assignment. This is a big document, and so I'm going to walk through all of this. So if you want to open up the beat assignment document, this can be intimidating. It can be pretty overwhelming for students. So I always like to use the adage or the old saying, how do you eat an elephant? If you think of this project as this massive elephant, well, how do you eat an elephant? And the answer is one bite at a time. So I'm waiting for your chuckles to subside. Your little okay. So that means we just take this project bit by bit. And I've done this for a while, and students do well on this. I've never had a student bomb it. And I like to think that a lot of that is because of just how much I explain thoroughly what they need to do, and that there are basic steps that are going to take you, sorry, I dropped my cord, that are going to take you all through the assignment. So what I'd like for you to do right now is to focus on me for a bit. My guess is you're opening up this document and you're scrolling through it and your eyes are glazing over. Perhaps you've started to sob a bit. So I know you want to look through this document. You probably want to look through the beat supplemental. If I can convince you to just focus on me, or at least focus on my words, you don't really need to look at me and can't blame me there. But if you can, try to avoid reading the document as I'm talking right now. We'll get through it. Or avoid shopping on Amazon or texting your friends or whatever. If you need to do any of that, just pause me and come back to me when you really are ready to focus. As I said, just about every student has succeeded with this, and the project is more than just doing some things and then being done. I do want you to know that this really is a foundational document that's going to serve as the basis for the other things you're going to do in this course. I really try to make everything that you have to do as clear as possible. I want you to thrive. I am on your team for this, and so I try to think of everything that I would think of if I had to tackle this, so that you understand exactly what you need to do and when you need to do it. I don't expect you to be an expert on any of this. I recognize that almost all of you have never done anything remotely close to this. So I expect you to fail or struggle at times, which is why you need to understand that I don't expect you to be an expert. I don't know why school in general tries to get you all to be experts at everything. Somebody explain to me why school is foisting upon you AP English and AP Math and AP History and AP Science. I've never met somebody who gets a job and is the accountant and the attorney and writes the public the PR pieces, and who does that? Nobody is able to do all of those things. So I don't get it. I understand they want you to have a wide variety of experiences, but that doesn't mean we should be shoving you into the highest level of all of those experiences. Drives me crazy. So know that pretty much everything you're going to be doing in here is new to you, or it might be confusing to you, which is why I have to get you to think of me as your editor and not your instructor. I know there's this natural power imbalance in classes. I have most of the power. You have very little power. I get that. Um, if you can look at this project as us working together, that I'm your editor, not your instructor, that you're the reporter and not a student. The reporter editor relationship is an ongoing one. It's a constant conversation. When I worked at the Cincinnati Enquirer, I'd come into work every day and I'd tell my editor, honestly, some days, I have no idea what I'm covering today. I really don't have a clue. And so we'd work through it. My editor would be like, that's fine. It's okay. I don't expect you to have the Pulitzer Prize winning story every day or a story every day. So let's talk through it. What do you know that's going on in the areas that you're supposed to cover? Who are some people maybe that you could call who might have some story ideas and or tips that might eventually get you into a story? And we just collaborate and we work through it. We were a team. We were both aligned because my success meant her success. Same thing for this. I am absolutely aligned with you, and so I don't know how. For some reason, some students don't get this. They aren't convinced that I really do have their best interests in mind, or they think they're a burden if they email me or text me or call me or stop in my office hours to talk about this. You're not a burden for me. I am 24/7 for you, and from now, through the end of this semester, you've got me anytime you want. You text, you call, you stop by office hours, we find out a better time to meet if office hours don't work, and we figure this out together. Because I want what I hope you want by the end of the semester, all the student learning objectives for this course, including your ability to find a good story, to find a compelling person who has a good story to tell, and then to get all this information, stats and observations and interviews, and put them together in a cogent, powerful story that you will write. And think of the resume now that you have, that you can tell potential employers what you can do. And it doesn't even have to be journalism related. It's just that you are able to talk to people. You're able to find out what's important and push the detritus out of the way. And then you are able to convey what you have learned in a cogent, powerful, interesting story. That works for just about any profession that you want to do. So work with me. Believe that I will help you. If you're intimidated by me or you're embarrassed because you don't know what to do, and this hasn't happened to you maybe academically before, I don't know how to convince you to get over that and just accept that it's okay to ask for help and that you've got somebody who isn't going to roll his eyes and say, "Oh God, all right, what do you need?" I live to help you all through this and do well. Okay, I want to talk next about the perils of procrastination. So stick with me on this too. This project is different than let's say an English class that you had, where you had to read a work of Shakespeare, perhaps, or a short story or a poem, and you were given a week or two to read something, maybe a novel, and then write a paper on it. Well, you can procrastinate on a lot of those assignments, and then a day or two before it's due, you can pull an all-nighter and get through it and produce something of value, perhaps. This is not one of those things. If you're a procrastinator, I'm a procrastinator. If you're one too, you're going to find that this project's different because you have to rely on a bunch of other people. You've got to rely on people to get back to you when you are asking for statistics. You are relying on people to have you interview them. You're going to rely on people to return your calls when you have just a specific question that you need answered. And if you wait on any of this, you are going to find the stress levels will increase. And when you are beholden to the whims of other people, and some of these people won't care to return your calls, some people will say they'll return your calls, but then they forget. Some people will just disappear. It's going to happen to you. And it's not that it won't happen to you, but it's how you deal with that. Just like in life, bad things are going to happen to you. How do you deal with them? So the goal is to get to those bad points as quickly as you can so you still have time for a solution, because your emergency will not be their emergency. When you have something due for this project and it's due in a day, and one of those things is to interview a couple people, and you haven't interviewed them yet, and now you're freaking out, guess what? They're not freaking out. They don't care. So you've got to get those interviews done a lot sooner than waiting until the day before the deadline. The sooner you get started, the less stress you're going to feel. The more you talk with me, the less stress you're going to feel. And I don't want you to feel any stress at all. The deadline for the entire project is about 5 weeks. That's a soft deadline, meaning we can adjust as we go. We aren't beholden to a specific deadline, but 5 weeks, in my experience in teaching this beat project and getting through this project, 5 weeks is just about the right amount of time, because then that allows us a bunch of time after the project is over for you to take the information and the interviews you got and then start to write stories based on all of that information. All right, well, let's go through the beat assignment document. So you should have that up now. You see that final due date is 5 p.m. Friday, March 20th. That's the Friday right before spring break. I want to get this done before you go to spring break, so you don't have all that time off, and then you come back and you've got to get back into this mode. So we're going to push to get this done by Friday. It's worth 150 total points. That's 15% of your overall semester grade of 1,000 points. Let's look at the goals. This assignment is going to help you plan and carry out interviews, observe activity in your beat, research contextual aspects of it, visualize it, and then think critically during the analysis of everything you find. These are all key aspects of journalistic reporting. And by the way, these are all fantastic skills that you're going to accrue that then you can put on your resume, your cover letter. When you are in interviews, you can talk about these critical thinking skills that you now have. I mean, just thinking in terms of just going out and interviewing people, of talking to strangers, of talking to administrators or faculty members, and having to look them in the eye and ask questions and probe, to get more information, and how few people your age do these things, and how valuable that skill is of talking to people face to face, of listening to them, and then being accurate in writing what they say. All right, well, the foundation of this project, as I said, this project is going to serve for you to write 3 stories after it. You're going to write an inverted pyramid story. We'll get to what that is very soon. A news narrative, and that's telling a story in a more narrative story structure, kind of like a novel or a short story. And then a focus story, where you're going to choose one of the people that you have encountered in this journey, and you're going to write specifically about that person. You're going to focus on that person. We'll get to those 3 stories weeks from now, after spring break. So I'll show you some examples as we go along this in these upcoming weeks. But for now, just put those aside. Don't worry about those. You really want to focus on the project. All right, let's look at the main steps. The first thing you need to do is choose a potential beat. And this is you talking about your beat with your editor. Who's your editor? Me. I'm your editor. So don't think like you got to figure this out on your own. Talk with me, talk with other people, and then after you choose your beat, you're going to determine 3 angles that you would cover about your beat. Angles are the topics that relate to your beat. So let me give you an example. Let's say the drinking culture is your beat. What are different things about the drinking culture that you could explore? Well, one would be underage drinking. The fact that a number of Miami students who aren't 21 are still drinking or able to drink. They might have fake IDs. They're able to access alcohol they keep in their dorms. So that's one angle. Another angle could be binge drinking. The act of not just having a few beers one night, but having 10 beers in one night. And what are the issues surrounding that? So those are angles, particular aspects of a bigger general idea. If I were the beat writer for the Cincinnati Reds, one angle would be spring training coming up and what those players are doing to get ready for the season. Another angle could be new players to the roster. So you try to find different story ideas based on your beat. By the way, drinking culture, not a beat. I've had a billion students choose that as a beat. And right now there really just isn't a lot of new information to be shared about that beat. So we're going to stay away from the drinking culture. Well, let's go back to your document. If you see there in bold and that little bulleted item under number one, I'm sorry, right above that where it says you need to talk to people about where you would go to observe those angles and the type of people you might want to interview. All of these steps um, will ask you to talk with folks and try to figure out the best things, the best places to go, the best people to talk to. You aren't the expert on these beats. The people who are living these beats are. And what they're going to do is to help you. If you look at that bulleted item, they're going to help you make sure that your beat actually has news, that your beat is relevant. In other words, it's currently interesting, that it's useful, that people will get this information and they'll feel like, okay, that's information I'm glad I know, and that it's interesting, that the stories that you find and the way you eventually will tell those stories are really interesting, and people, even if they aren't necessarily or they don't think they're interested in that story, would still want to read about it. I've listed a bunch of potential beats. These are beat ideas that students have done in the past. And so you might want to pause me here and just take a look at these beats. Before you pause me, though, I do want you to think about what interests you. What are the things on this campus or in Oxford are things that you actually talk about with your friends, that you discuss. Maybe it's sports, maybe it's academics, whatever it is. But think of the things that really interest you. And now pause me and look through this list of beats and then come back to me. If you look underneath the list of beats, you'll see in purple a soapstone, and how soapstone is your guide in this stage as you are thinking about a beat topic. So subject is the first part of soapstone. What beat topic do I want to cover? This is critical. Please, I beg you, please choose a beat topic that you actually care about. I've had students who've chosen a topic just because they thought it would be easy to cover. So they found out that maybe there's number 27 is the theater and arts community. So like, oh well, I know there's there's a musical and a Glee Club concert. So okay, I know there are things to cover. So I'll just cover that. That'll be easy. But they don't care about any of that. And so, they're not leaping out of bed every morning and thinking, all right, I get to go interview somebody about the Glee Club concert coming up. If you don't care about the Glee Club, and if you don't, you got some problems with me. If you don't care about that, then you aren't really going to be interested in this at all. It's not going to be fun. Think of the topics that really do interest you, that you do want to talk about, that you are curious about. You want to know more. You want to know Miami's place in all of this compared to nationally. And so when you can think about that and you are interested in that, then you're going to care. For instance, number 22 about local religious communities. If religion fascinates you, Christianity or Islamic religion, if those interest you and you want to know what goes on around Miami with those religions, with students or faculty members or the town itself, then you are gonna care, and this won't be a burden. This project, you're gonna look forward to it. So that's the subject, and then you need to think about not only what topic you want to cover, but the angles. Then let's look at the occasion. You get to go out and observe. You have to do 3 observations where you go out and just watch things happen. So, which occasions are the best ones to go observe? Which times and places for each one of those angles is going to work? So, if I go back to the drinking culture thing and binge drinking is one of my angles, what event this semester would be the best occasion for me to observe binge drinking? And I don't think it's a difficult decision there. I would expect you to observe Green Beer Day for that particular angle. Audience. You're going to be writing stories for a national audience, which means you're going to have to explain everything in your documents. Pretend when your audience is reading that they don't know slant walk from skippers. And so you have to add a qualifier or an explanation of what these things are. The next is purpose. Your goal is to inform readers about the topic. You aren't allowed to editorialize. You're not allowed to say that religion is important to many students on campus. You have to interview people and they can say religion is important to a lot of people on campus, but you are not allowed to do that. You stick with facts. When you interview people, you can ask their opinions about the facts. Speakers, that part of Soapstone, are the best people for each angle. Your job is to go find, if religion is your beat, somebody who is, you know, religious and has a compelling story to tell about it. Maybe this person never cared much about religion and didn't have any feelings about God, and now suddenly has transformed. And maybe that person, leads youth groups at Crossroads or something. You want to try to find the best types of people for each angle. Speakers also include statistics, both national and local. You need to find those too. And then tone, your stories are going to maintain the tone of a news article. So this first step is worth 5 points of you trying to come up with a potential beat, trying to come up with 3 angles for support, and getting this kind of basic information. That's only worth 5 points, and that's going to be due this Monday. This isn't a beat that you necessarily are going to be married to. You're going to be allowed to change your ideas as you go along. Some of you are going to find out that your beat just isn't feasible. There aren't any activities that are going on, or people don't want to talk to you. If you choose a particularly personal beat, let's say mental health is a beat, and you want to talk to some people maybe who've gone through sexual assault and the mental health issues surrounding that, it might be really difficult to find a student who is willing to give his or her name and then be interviewed. So you will find that you might have to change your beat topic once, maybe even twice, maybe even 3 times, which again, why you don't want to procrastinate. So for Monday, you're just going to give it a go. It's 5 points. It's you exploring a little bit and trying to figure out whether that beat would be feasible. The second step is researching your beat, and that is getting some history and national trends, local trends, as I put on here, cost, demographics. This is all number 2 on your beat project assignment. This is you getting that contextual information as much as you can, which, if you remember on your quiz, that's the next thing you should do. Try to become as knowledgeable as you can. You're not going to be an expert because eventually you're going to talk to the people who are experts. But for now, you're going to try to just get some information. Let's see if there is national information and local information that you'll be able to use eventually in stories for context. This is that proof that the story is relevant. Think of the Joseph Barrera story. The story was about him, but the author also found statistics to bolster Barrera's story. That, yeah, this is about Joseph Barrera, but it's also about millions of other people. So that's why it's worth reading this story, to show you that his story is the story of a lot of other people. This is only worth 5 points too. But this is, again, that just this beginning process of you understanding that your beat is a viable topic. The third thing you're going to do is to continue to talk to people. So for number 1 and number 2, you should be talking to the people associated with that beat topic to ask them, what angles are the best angles, or where can I find information about national statistics or local statistics? You need to find the people within that beat who are going to be your constant sources of communication. They are thrilled to hear from you, these people, because you are taking interest in something that's their passion. I mean, imagine you chose the journalism program as your beat, and you came up to me and you said, I'd really like to cover the journalism program. Would you want to talk about it? Would I want to talk about it? Come on in, buy you a coffee, maybe a nice dinner. We'll talk about it as long as you want. Of course, find those people who love doing what they do, and you will never be a burden to them. And guess what? They're going to do so much work for you. I don't know about you, but I am extraordinarily lazy. I love finding people who do work for me. So the sooner you get people who could talk about this beat project, this topic all day long, and they know everybody. They know, oh, I know somebody with a great story. If you're covering the football team, I know somebody who broke his leg and he's coming back and he's going to make it probably to the NFL. I mean, that's a great story. You're never going to find that story on your own, but the people who are involved with the football team will know that story and they can't wait to tell you. So, number three asks you to visit these stakeholders, talk to them on the phone, email with them, whatever it takes. But these people, along with me, I can help too. These people, me, your classmates, because we're going to talk about your beat topics in class, and there's going to be somebody invariably in the class who's going to be like, oh, I know who you need to talk to. Talk to this person. They're going to help you confirm your story angles, maybe create better ones, as this says under number three, to assist you in determining other people you need to interview along with the events you should observe. And so they're going to really get all these folks are going to finally solidify those three story angles. And then if you see there in red font under number three on this beat project assignment sheet, once you commit to those three angles, now you need to commit to the essential people to interview. And you want to think of the different roles of the speakers. These are the speakers part of Soapstone. Are they students, instructors, administrators, custodians? Who knows? Whatever it is based on your beat, who are the types of people within those groups that you need to talk about? Because you need to talk to a variety of people who will give that full context and understanding of your beat. Also, in step three, you're going to talk to these people about where you should observe. What are the best occasions? When and where? They will know all of those things for you. If you look on the next part of this assignment, it says after this stage of the project, you will have solidified now exactly what your beat is, the three angles that are going to work because you've confirmed it with these stakeholders, the national and local statistics, you've found them that are going to justify that your beat is relevant, three occasions, three observations where you now know, yes, I'm going to go here and I'm going to go there at this specific time. And then you've discovered these essential people who have great stories that are associated with each of those angles. That's worth 10 of the 150 points. All of this is going to happen within the next, I'd say, week to 10 days. Keep in mind this: if this were your job, if this were something you did every day, well, of course, you would have a lot more time to do all those things. We're under the constraints of a semester where you have a number of other things you need to do. So consider this a taste of what a beat reporter would do. I understand the time constraints. I understand that you might not find the best story, the best observation, the best person to interview who has that great story. So please recognize that I realize the time constraints. Let's go to number four. Now that you have solidified all these major things, your occasions, time and place where you're going to observe, for instance, now number four says go observe. So maybe it's a weight room at 6 in the morning. Maybe it's a late night study group at King Library. Maybe you realize that a 2:30 p.m. biology class is where you need to be, or you need to be at Skipper's at 2 a.m. Wherever it is, you got to be there. You got to go out and observe. And when you do, you need to take notes. You need to tell us who is there and what's happening and when is this and where are you and all of the sights and sounds and smells of that place. We need to feel like we're there. So your notes need to be pretty thorough. And also, you're going to use those notes to write stories weeks from now. So the more thorough you are with your notes when you're there, the better chance that I feel like I was there too, right beside you, as you experienced what you observed. Let's take a look at that first bulleted item under number four. You're going to go to three different observations. Each observation will match with an angle. So let me say that again. You're going to go to three different observations, three different events, and each event is going to coincide with a different angle. So let me give you an example. If the football team is your beat and you decide an angle is them preparing for the fall season, that's an angle. Where would you go? Well, you could go watch them work out at the weight center place near Yeager Stadium. That's an observation. Maybe a different angle is looking at how a Division I athlete balances academics and athletics. Where could you go for there? Well, maybe you attend an 8:30 a.m. class with the football player. They have early morning classes because they have to work out in the afternoon. So that's a different angle, balancing academics and athletics, and you found a specific place to go to observe that. Okay, so you have to go 3 different events, each corresponding with an angle. The next bulleted item, at those observations, you're going to take 1 photo. So that means you will take 3 total photos for this project, 1 at each observation. The third bulleted item, you're going to record video with your phone at each of these observations. Please don't forget to do this. So, and you're going to record about 20 seconds, 20 to 30 seconds worth of video. Just hold your phone and just observe. Try to be as inconspicuous as possible. This might be weird, I know, but you're just going to scan the area. Let us see what's happening through video. Only about 20 to 30 seconds that'll suffice. At the end of the project, you're going to call all those videos. You're going to edit the video, and then you're going to do a recording voiceover. So you don't need to get sound, and you don't need to talk while you are recording. You're just getting the visual recording. And so as it says in that third bulleted item, you are then going to eventually, after this project's over, you're going to record yourself talking about those individual 3 observations. So it's going to be about a minute, maybe a minute and a half long, not a minute per observation. I put some more details about the video that you'll do later, weeks from now, so you don't really need to worry about that. For now, just remember to take about 20 to 30 seconds of video. Don't need to talk or do anything at each of your observations. That video is going to be worth 10 points of the 150 points of the project. So here are the observation deadlines. So you remember you need to do 3 of them based on each angle. Your first observation isn't due until 5 p.m. on Friday, March 6th. So notice these are, that's a Friday due date, which allows us to have class time for you to work on other things or to talk about where you're going to observe, or maybe even I can look over your observation form that you're going to turn in. So each observation has a form that you're going to fill out to show me that you actually did go somewhere. And that's where you're going to put your notes about the who and the what and the when and the where, all those details. First observation is by Friday, March 6th. Second observation by Monday, March 16th by 5 p.m. And then the final observation by 5 p.m. on Friday, March 20th. That's the date where all of this is due. Each of those observations is worth 20 points. That's 60 total points. Number 5 is you need to conduct interviews for each angle. So if you look at number 5 on this BEAT project assignment, now that you know the best people to interview, you need to set up in-person interviews. You need to interview at minimum 2 people for this for each observation and angle. So let's think about this. Let's go back to the football example. Let's say that you're covering the team this semester. One of your angles is balancing academics and athletics. So who should you interview for that? Well, you got to interview a football player, and your goal is to find the player that has the best story to tell. Don't interview a player who is, I'm doing okay, I got B's, I'm doing all right. There's not much story there. Find a football player who's going to graduate magna cum laude, or find a football player who's on the cusp of getting suspended for low academics. You want to find a success or a struggle. Who else could you interview? Let's continue a little bit with number 5 here, and then we'll figure that out. So it says in bold that you need to interview at minimum 2 people for each observation angle, and that means you'll interview 6 total people for this project. That's not a lot. And by the way, that's down from 12 people that when I first started this project was the requirement. 4 people for each observation. I got enough feedback on my course evaluation sheets from students who said, Reader, this is 201. It's not journalism 350. Okay, you know what? You're right. Let's cut it down to 2 people per observation angle. So 6 total people to conduct these formal interviews. Notice in the next sentence, I say these need to be different types of people in terms of ages or genders or roles or connections. So, and I give you an example. If your beat were the Talawanda School District, you decide to cover the school levy. They put a levy up on election night, and that's to fund the schools. Who could you talk to get the full picture of the story? Well, you'd talk to an administrator and a teacher and a parent and a student, somebody who's voting for it, somebody who's voting against it. Those are all different types of people that you could talk to. I put in purple that your interviews might be conducted during your observations, or you might complete them at other times. For each of the angles underneath that purple bulleted item, one of these people must be an expert or authority figure. In other words, someone who is an authority that you can quote who has expert knowledge on your topic. In almost every case, that can't be a student. The student might be living it, but he or she is not an expert in that particular beat topic. Now, you might have an argument of why a student really is an expert or an authority figure, and you can talk with me about that. But by and large, you need to choose an adult, somebody my age. So let's go back to that example of balancing academics and athletics. That's an angle for your football team. You would want to talk. One of your two interviews has to be with a student who's dealing with it. Let's say it's a student who is thriving and is getting really good grades. That second interview must be an authority figure. Who could that be? What about a tutor? The football team, I assume, has a tutor that helps the players do well. I would interview that tutor, and I'd ask the tutor, what sorts of programs do you have set up for these students? How often do you meet with students? Do you check grades with professors every week, every 2 weeks? Do you meet with students? Do you have study tables with students? What are the typical signs that you know when students are struggling? Can you tell? There's a million ways that you can questions that you can ask that authority figure, but that's somebody that you would want to talk to. And again, these interviews could be conducted during your observations, or it might not be the best place to do it. So let's say you're observing. Let's stick with that idea of balancing academics and athletics, and you're observing that football player in that 8:30 class, and he's tired. Let's say he's fallen asleep. He was up late studying. He's had practice every day. He's got this 8:30 class, so he's got his hat on, it's down over his eyes, and he's snoozing. Well, that's an observation. You're going to observe the fact that this player is exhausted and is missing the lecture, and but you're not going to interview that person then. You're not going to wake him up and go, hey, Rex, can I talk to you about balancing academics and athletics? How's that going? That's the worst time to interview. You can interview anytime. So you can say, hey, after class, you want to interview, or how about in a couple days, let's set up a time to meet at Cafeteria, and we'll chat about the struggles and successes you've had. And certainly you're not going to interview the expert during the class, because the expert's not going to be in the class. So understand that these interviews might be conducted during your observations, maybe, or just maybe before or after or any time. If you go back to that document and see, as we get closer to the end of this number 5, your goal is to find, again, the best examples of the type of people you need to interview. And then in red font, this is critical, you are not allowed to conduct email interviews. Those are out. If that's the only way you can email someone, then you have to talk to me about it. I'm going to probably tell you, nope, you got to figure out another way. The problem with email interviews, there are multiple problems. The biggest problems are, number one, you're not going to get answers really in their voice. They're not going to write to you the same way they would talk to you. So you're going to miss out on that authentic way that people talk that adds character to them. Number two, you don't really get to have opportunities to ask follow-up questions. So an answer they give in a face-to-face interview gives you a great chance to immediately go into that particular topic, and you might uncover a whole bunch of really incredible information. An email interview, though, doesn't allow you to do that because you don't get to follow up, or at least follow up very well. And the third thing is, we never really can be sure that that person is truly the person who's typed the email responses to you. For all we know, it's a coach or somebody who has responded. So in-person interviews are the way to go. If you have to do a phone interview, if that's really the only way that you can talk to someone, again, let me know, and we'll try to find a better solution than a phone interview. But just about every case, you've got to do this in person. All right. Here are the interview deadlines. They match the observation deadlines. So, just like for the observations, you're going to interview people based on those angles. If the football team is your beat idea, and balancing academics and athletics is your angle, then you're going to observe the student going to class at 8:30 in the morning. You're also probably going to then you're going to interview that student plus some expert or authority figure. And the interviews and the observations match in terms of due dates just to help you keep everything straight. These are also worth 20 points each, so that's 60 of the 150 points that's going to be due. This is a lot for you to do, so I'm going to reiterate. The sooner and the more you talk with me about your project, the better. I have 36 students in 2 sections of Journalism 201 this semester. That's a lot. That's way more than any editor at a newspaper would have to handle. A typical editor would probably have 4 or 5 reporters to deal with. So I have 36. So that's a lot on me. And so the more that you communicate with me, the easier it's going to be for me to manage you and make sure you're on the right track. What I don't want is what I know you don't want, which is for you to feel like you're just swinging in the breeze and you have no idea what to do, and you're frustrated and you're stressed out, and you can just feel this slipping away. And you know this project is not only worth 150 points, but then you've got all these papers you're going to write based on it, and you just feel like it's all falling apart. Please don't feel that way. Please reach out to me. I'm your editor with this project, and I'm going to help you with it. All right, well, let's move on to the Beat Video Supplemental document, which is going to walk you through how this all will work in just a more linear fashion. So on this Beat Video Supplemental, this is a scenario on how you would choose a beat, determine angles, observe, and then interview. And this is based a lot on what I've already talked about, but I think having this all in one document might, and not on that assignment, will, where it has due dates and everything else, will clarify this. So if you look on this document in green text, it says, for all these steps, you must rely on people to help you, not just me, but the people who are involved in that particular beat. So in other words, I put on here, your first action is to contact people associated with your beat to determine if there are angles that are relevant, useful, and interesting. Is this even going to work? B, national and local stats and context to prove to readers your story matters. Instead of you searching for hours for the stats, ask somebody. If you were covering the journalism program and you said, do you have any stats on the journalism program here at Miami? Yeah, I can tell you how many journalism majors there are. I can tell you how many sections of classes there are. I can show you the order of classes from Journalism 101 all the way through to the top of what they have to take. I know, I have all that information. You don't have to search for it. I'll send it to you. Those are the kind of people you need to find. Letter C, you need to find people who can help tell you what events to cover. These events don't need to be official events. They don't need to be, a speaker that Miami has brought in who's going to lecture from 6 to 8 o'clock on Wednesday, February 26th. And it doesn't need to be an official event. For instance, I talked about you just observing somebody in a class. That's not an official event put on by Miami University. That's just some dude going to class. But it still works. Look at the Joseph Barrera story. The lead, the occasion was the grease trap exploding. It's just something that happened, and that's what you need to cover. So you need to make sure by talking to the people associated with a beat that there are things that you could observe, and whether they are formal or informal events. If there was, let's say, balancing academics and athletics with the football team, maybe the team does do a formal event. Maybe they are bringing in an academic tutor to address the entire team formally from noon to 2 on a Saturday to work on study skills and other ways that they can be successful. So maybe there is truly an event, but if not, you find those informal moments that help us understand your beat. And then finally, letter D, Work with people that you talk to find people who are willing to talk with you, willing to interview with you, perhaps, if they are going to be the best sources for interviews. Those people, again, are going to help you in letter A, determine the best observations, and letter B, find the people with the most compelling stories. So the more people you can find to help you who are enthusiastic about your beat project, who are immersed in that beat, the more people you find, the more work they will do for you. And this will be a breeze. It really will be. If you feel like you got to do all this on your own, it's not going to be a good experience. So here again is me walking through all of these steps. First thing, if I chose a beat, let's say I chose Miami's football team. I know they're not doing anything right now, so this isn't the most relevant topic that you could choose. Of course, the baseball team maybe would be a better one to choose than the football team. But for example purposes, let's say I chose the football team. Then I need to find angles. Now, I might brainstorm and I come up with 5 different angles. And you can brainstorm if you want, or my advice is find somebody on the team and say, what are some things that we should talk about when it comes to your team? And I guarantee you, it would take them 10 seconds to say, well, you could talk about how we have to, go to class and also be on a football team. That's balancing academics and athletics. We could talk about how the stands are empty all the time for all of our games. That's lack of fan or student support. We could talk about, recruiting, how we find the players to come to Miami. That's number 3. We could talk about what we're doing, what we do right now in the spring. A lot of people don't know what it's like. They think we just kind of hang out and don't do anything. So you could write about that. Or you could maybe write about how they're trying to get more interest in the team. They're trying to, the athletic department's trying to figure out ways to get students and local people and alumni to the games. So those were just off the top of my head. And maybe you are able to do that with your angles, but if not, find somebody who can help you with that. Now, you need only 3. You might come up with 20. You need only 3 of those angles. And again, you need to find 3 that are feasible for you to do. The next thing is you want to determine observations. Think about soapstone. The O part of soapstone is occasion. What's the best time and place? And you want to match an observation to each one of those 3 angles that you have chosen. The best time and place to see those angles and action. And again, I put on here that the observations don't have to be official events, but your job is to find times and places where you can help us understand your beat. I'll give an example. Let's say I choose 3 story angles from that list above. I choose number 1, balancing academics and athletics. I choose preparing for the upcoming season, and then I choose marketing and publicizing the team. I'm then going to talk to the people that I've met who are going to help me figure out the best occasions to observe each story angle. Let's say if you continue with this document, I chose the preparing for the upcoming season angle. That's my, so what observation could I choose? Well, I would talk to people on the team and they could say, well, we work out